You said something interesting there about the physical, having almost like the physical thing, the physical reminder. And then you said a really interesting thing about building a wall,
Yeah,
which reminds me of course, Mr. Trump. And it's really bizarre to me that the American people, just from my personal opinion, think that he is as amazing as they think he is, if that makes sense. Because actually, he's done a lot of things that are very, very illegal. If you actually
yeah.
look into the detail, he has been. Well, he's been taken to court for it. I mean,
Mhm.
he's legitimately done a lot of stuff that is illegal. Now, he did exactly what you were saying, and he said, well, I'm going to build a wall. But what he's also done is he's implemented a strategy on social media where he's going on like Logan Paul's podcast, going on tons of Twitch streamers, streams. Like, he's kind of getting the masses of younger people to love him so that they post about him on social media and reinforce the idea that Trump is the best candidate. Is
Mhm.
there a kind of psychological side of that we can see? What are your kind of observations on his strategy?
Um, uh, that's certainly true. He's very media savvy. I would say I think it happens on all sides of the political spectrum. Though I'm not. I mean, I wouldn't. I'm not kind of defending or condoning Trump, but I think all politicians do it, and it just happens through different outlets. I mean, the
Mm.
Democrats have Hollywood and all of the media, so if Trump has a few Twitch streamers, I wouldn't kind of begrudge him that. But yeah, he's like very media savvy. He is so there was quite a famous book called Propaganda, funnily enough, by Edward Bernays, whose blood relative founded Netflix, but that's another story. And he wrote this book called Propaganda, and he talks about the pyramid model of influence.
Mm.
I guess it's kind of basic if you think about it, but it's about influencing influencers, and then that idea will trickle down and propagate to the people who follow them. Sorry. Um, so that seems to be what he's doing. He's also kind of using reactance, which is, I guess, reverse psychology, or if you
Mm.
feel like you're being forced to do something, someone's trying to manipulate you or force you, then you rebel against that. So I would say it's not so much a vote for him as much as it's a vote against the establishment, and
Mm.
he's kind of working people up with that. Uh, with that kind of rhetoric. I think that's how he energizes his base, is by saying like you're under attack, free
Mm.
speech is under attack, etc. Which there's undoubtedly some truth to, but there's some truth to all politicians' arguments, I'm sure. So I'm trying not to be like left or right or this politician or that politician. I think they all use the same kind of techniques, but they just use them in different ways.
Yeah, and I would kind of agree. I think that so for example, this year I didn't actually vote because I think that every single politician is utterly,
Mm,
they're just full of rubbish,
yeah,
and not one of them can give a clear answer. Not I don't think they really know what they're doing actually. I
yeah,
think that they're just maybe being advised and they're just doing what people say. So I'm quite adverse to obviously being quite logical. I'm quite adverse to voting if I don't know who I'm going to vote for,
yeah.
because like what's the point? So this year specifically, I didn't. But what I find bizarre about Trump is the fact that one of the reasons that I can identify in my logical brain that he is running for presidency is that he wants to exonerate himself,
Hmm.
and I think that's for some reason people aren't talking about it, and I think it's like the social trend is they're kind of afraid of what the other bigger influencers will say if they say that. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So it's just a bit bizarre to me that like he has that much of an influence on that culture. And then it's also quite interesting what markets he hits in America, because he goes around the typically, to put it in a better, there's not really a better way of saying this, but he goes around the typically more poor areas to
Hmm.
get their votes, and typically in the poorer areas they're not as educated,
Yeah.
which is bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, his running mate JD Vance wrote
Mm.
this book. My wife loves that book actually. But it's yeah, as you may know, it's about his kind of background, and his parents were drug addicts, I think, and he grew up in this kind of hillbilly way. So that pick for me absolutely, I think, fits with what you're saying. That it's he's appealing to poorer, more rural voters, and I think your point is that's funny because Trump is like a billionaire and he's not like them at all, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
there's
and also he's going to court because he's been, because of all this monetary issue.
yeah, yeah. Um, so I think there's two types of conservatism. There's economic conservatism where richer people, Trump kind of people, don't want to lose their money, so they're kind of anti-tax and so on. But there's also social conservatism, which tends to be poorer people. They might not have any money, but they don't want to lose their culture and their community, and that's partly
Mm.
why they tend to be against immigration and the modern media and so on. So I think with that kind of less affluent, more rural aspect, that's what appeals to them about Trump. Obviously,
Mm.
making America great again, going back to things how things used to be, rather than all the change that's happening socially.